Hello, everyone, and welcome to the infrastructure group conversation. I see there are some questions already in the agenda. So Victor, would you like to verbalize your question?
Sure, yes. As moving into more Kubernetes management as a product manager, my question would be that is it possible to kind of shadow some of our SREs on how they work on GitLab.com on Kubernetes, and who would be the right people to shadow?
Okay, thank you for that question. So as Maren points out, Jarv, Skarbek, and Devin are probably good folks to shadow. And I think this would actually be something that more folks could take advantage of. So we'll make some update to the handbook on how we can structure this a little better than just sort of randomly tagging on people. So reach out to those folks, and then we'll make something a little more structured to the handbook.
Victor, I can also invite you to join our weekly demos. So delivery team does Kubernetes migration demos where we go through the weekly work that we accomplished, and we kind of go through the goals that we set, go through what we achieved, where we can adapt. You can find the invite on the GitLab team meetings calendar there, and you also can find the recordings on YouTube Unfiltered channel. We have a playlist specifically related to the Kubernetes migration. You can check that out as well.
Okay, Sam also points out that the Monitor Health team has an SRE shadow program in place. So I'll check out that link. Sam, thanks you so much. Sarah?
I was just linking to the place where the Monitor Health team has documented how we've done that program. And I'm about to go find a blog from engineers on our team that have done it. That was it, no question.
Thank you.
I think there's a couple that just completed it. So yeah, there's a great blog post up about it. And there's should be, I think, 2 more blog posts coming soon.
Thank you all.
Sid?
Yeah, thanks, Javier. You're transitioning now to fellow, but I want to thank you for the improvements you and the rest of the team achieved over the time you were in the leadership role. It's night and day compared to where we were and where we're now. And we're now able to have availability that is comparable to our competition, which is amazing. I don't think we're stopping here. I think we want to be even better, but it's thanks so much for what you achieved, and I look forward to working with you in your new role.
Me too. Yeah, thank you. But again, it's really the team's work. So I was just watching. But thank you again. Danielle.
Hi. I noticed on slide 3 some change in kind of the way we're talking about cost savings, moving to cost management. So I was just wondering if that means we've gotten most of the savings, or if kind of maybe you could just speak to how you're thinking about that.
Yeah, so we discussed this at the Cloud Cost meeting this week, and the feeling is this: for a long time, we didn't do any real management of our costs. So a year ago, we had an initiative to go cut some costs and get some savings. We succeeded in that, but in doing so, we took our focus off availability. So we went through another slump over the summer, and now, recently we picked that back up. But what's happening is we've hit most of the low-hanging fruit. We've dealt with most of the things that were obvious. Davis has actually uncovered an incredible amount of stuff that we need to work on. But what we're finding is that these are not, whereas before we just didn't really think it through. It's like, here's the functionality, here's the infrastructure, go. Now we're starting to find that the things that we need to get done are more about what things do we need to do to the application with cost in mind to be able to achieve our goals. And so it's more about coming up with a framework of cost per user and evaluating our decisions with a very clear trade-off when it comes to costs. So rather than savings, because it costs money to run the application, we really need to think about management where we have this framework, we have some targets that we want to hit, and as product and development and infrastructure make decisions, we're making those decisions within that framework. So I think it's an evolution of we always knew we needed to care about the money, but we did some trade-offs. We dealt with sort of the stuff that was easy to achieve, and we were very successful a year ago. And now we just need to mature that model to really manage our costs more than just save money. We always want to save money, but it costs to offer the service, and we just need to make sure that we're making these decisions with data.
Cool, thank you.
I don't know if Davis or Brent also want to add to this.
Yeah, I would just, oh, sorry, Brent, you can go ahead.
Oh, no, I think I was just going to say, I think Davis put it really well. It's not so much that these cost saving, cost saving things are no longer something that we can tackle. It's just, as was mentioned, additionally, like we have to build a framework or a roadmap around how we want to tackle these things to look at them not only through the lens of like, okay, we have a whole bunch of things that we can do to achieve some of these savings in the near term, but we also have to look at like a more holistic roadmap of like, how do we do things, including like talking to vendors to find additional discounts. How do we enable essentially Davis to do this magic of like analyzing data and finding some technical solutions that we can tackle. One good example of this is we currently run all of Gitaly on SSDs. Like there's now a conversation of like, how do we want to do this differently and leverage some cheaper infrastructure to do so. So.
Yeah, I would just add that, like I mentioned in the comment, it's more about just having an organized process around this. So inevitably, there will always be like random cost savings that pop up. Like we find a server here or there that's just been left out, we can delete those. So that's kind of what I think of as these random things that pop up. But in terms of having a process around it, I see infrastructure kind of moving into more of a supporting role where on the macro side, when we sign contracts or when we do big deals with cloud vendors, we're really acting in a supporting role, identifying what infrastructure we have and what that costs, and therefore like, I guess like what amount we should go into these deals with. So we're playing a supporting role to finance and our account managers with that. And then on the more micro side of like specific services, we're identifying the areas where like the high priority areas within our product, and then identifying those and basically working with those product teams to see what we can do there. So it's more of a, I guess like, instead of only being only infrastructure, we're trying to make it more of a cross-department function where from the service side, product and development are involved. And then from the macro side, finance and like our account teams and strategic account leaders are involved there. So that's kind of what we're going for with that.
Victor, I know you're writing.
Yeah. In the past weeks, I was thinking about having at least some of the review apps like GitLab.com that are stateless apps served over Knative, which is kind of a scale-to-0 on top of Kubernetes. I don't know if we have it today as a feature or not. I don't know how costly running these review apps are, but if you can, do you have any ideas around that? Like, do we have it already? Is it costly or not?
I think Marin or Davis would be the folks
So
that can actually address this.
review apps obviously cost money, like the current ones we have. But I don't know whether our review apps actually support Knative out of the box. I know that the way the review apps are configured right now basically is connecting to the Kubernetes cluster directly rather than through Knative. So I don't know whether the product supports it.
Yeah, I'll link an issue here. There's an issue about review app costs, but overall, it's not a huge portion of the CI costs, so it's not a big concern today, but I'll post the issue in here for you.
Thank you.
Engineering productivity team is responsible for the review apps in GitLab project, so GitLab or GitLab project. We worked on cleanup from the start, so that kind of allowed us to keep the costs down to begin with. I'm not really sure how it works in the GitLab repo.
All right, Sid, your comment on slide 3.
Yeah, slide 3 says safety over velocity. I looked at at the issue, and it seems to be that we need correct pre and post flight checks, which is probably kind of extra work if you want to implement the change. I wonder whether it impacts velocity as such. In my view, velocity is kind of the volume of changes you can do in a set time period, let's say deployments per month. I think if you have good pre-flight and post-flight checks, you're going to increase your velocity because you're less likely to end up in some unknown state where there's a big problem and now everything is stopped, for the whole train is stopped for a few days as you figure out what to do. So I wonder why it was set up as a conflict. Maybe it's safety over time spent deploying a single change or something like that.
I think the messaging, and I can certainly update that to reflect that, is think safety first. So whenever we're getting ready to make a change, the cost of that change may seem simple at first, but if the change goes sideways and off the rails, then that cost is going to be could be astronomical. So sometimes we're making, as we think through changes, we are making decisions not necessarily building these assumptions into the automations. And so the idea is to make sure the automation understands this is my initial state and this is the state under which I've been designed to operate. And if none of these conditions are met, then the automation should actually protect the environment before it tries to execute the change. And we've had instances where some assumption we made wasn't correct, and so the automation sort of proceeded, and then that caused some downtime. So the general idea behind this is not about having a checklist that you follow on a change issue, but it's about building this into the automation. And over time, you end up building this library of pre-change checks and verification checks, and then you just pick what you need. So when you're building that library, there's probably a little bit of a slowdown because you are investing the time in creating those checks. But then over time, not only is your speed faster, but your confidence that what you're doing is correct and that the automation is going to do the right thing when it's not is very high. So yes, in essence, you spend less time sort of double checking yourself. So yeah, we can change the warning on that to reflect the fact that it's mostly about make sure that we're building those checks, because over time, this won't be a question, right, of one over the other. We're building checks that have safety measures built in.
Great. I think safety first is a great way to say it. I'll propose another one: measure twice, cut once. It's a common saying in English, but I like it because normally it means that you measure twice before you make a cut. In this case, we're doing something else. We have pre-flight and post-flight checks. So we measure twice, one upfront and one after the fact. So it's kind of twisting an existing saying. So that will be my proposal for how to say it.
Yeah, and that is definitely the general idea. This all came because I ran into this article about avalanche safety on the New York Times, and they talk about human factors. And then I started thinking about, okay, when I'm making a change, those factors are affecting the way I'm making decisions. So how do you counteract those? In an avalanche, that's actually hard, but in our environment where we can essentially control everything, it should be far easier. So yeah, I'll update the language to reflect that.
Thanks.
I
have the next one as well. Shout out to Stan for his work on improving the container registry, which was spewing errors. Great investigative work. Stan's on the call. Thanks, Stan. Really impressive.
The shout out. I would
Yeah,
like
and
to also add
that
I would like to also add that the registry is the only service that we currently have that has had 100% availability over the period of 7 days, which is really rewarding to see.
Yeah, my comment is just that, Stan, you seem to be everywhere all the time. So, shout out for this thing, but shout out for everything else. Although I see you less these days, which is probably a good sign. Maybe that's how we measure availability. How much do you get to see Stan?
Exactly. Need Stan less. That should be the goal.
Yeah, definitely. It's been an improvement. So I've been able to walk away and make sure that people have taken care of a lot of stuff. So thanks for your team for doing that.
Oh, I see your background. That is weird.
I've been waiting to do this for a long time, Sid.
So I don't see any other questions or comments. If no one wants to add anything else, then we'll wrap up. Okay, Craig is just making a compliment on Stan's background. So anyway, thank you all, and again, thank you. It's been a fun year and a half doing this, and I look forward to the next phase. So the next one, it should be actually our new VPI doing this. So thanks again.